Good morning, everyone. We're going to be talking 7.3 power stroke injectors today for your work truck. Now, before we get into the video, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps me out. I do these videos just to help other enthusiasts. I don't get anything for it. It just encourages me to continue to make these videos to help spread my knowledge and the things I've learned over the years, and also take it from other people that know a lot more about the industry than I do, that have been into it for a long time. We try to compile all that, put it in these videos. So if you can, take a second, like, share, subscribe. It helps us out. That's enough of that. We're going to be talking 7.3 power stroke injectors for your work truck. Now, what does it mean when I say work truck? We are talking about you guys that are either hot shotting, you're using it for hay, work, landscaping, dump truck, rollback, tow, whatever it is that you absolutely depend on your 7.3 power stroke for. This is going to apply for your OBS trucks, whether it's a 250 or 350, you 10 lug super or F Super Duty guys and the OBSs, and also talking about the early 99 and also late 99 to 03 Super Duties. Now, with that being said, what is my idea of a good working injector for these trucks? Well, it's going to be something that has minimal smoke, because you don't want to be pulling up to a job site blowing smoke everywhere. It's going to leave customers a really bad taste. You also don't want to attract a whole lot of extra attention to yourself from law enforcement, especially if you got your logo all over the side of your truck. It's going to be an injector that runs cool, that you can run a good heavy tow tune on, or a medium tow tune, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about trucks that are being used for trucks and working. Regardless of what your friends or buddy might say, you're typically not going to see a 7.3 towing at 400 or 500 horsepower. I don't care what T4 kit they have. I don't care what H-pops they have. The 7.3s are 1980s, early 1990s technology in the power strokes. The limitations are there. Their cooling system, the oil cooler, even their ability just being a 2-valve engine to keep the EGTs and piston temperatures under control are kind of minimal for what they are. And that's why a lot of them came with 250, 270 horsepower from the factory, and even less in the internationals and the medium duty trucks. They were like 200, 210, 225. OBSs, you guys were like 210 because of not having the intercoolers. That's a really good example of how limited these trucks were. Now, there's not saying that we can't do a lot to improve that, because you can easily make 300 or 350 horsepower, depending on what kind of truck you have. With just tuning OBS, you can make high 200s, and even on Super Duty, you can hit, maybe 325 or something like that at the wheels, with basically just tuning, which is great. But once again, we have to talk about EGTs and keeping things under control. So when I talk about the injectors, I'm often going to recommend for those guys that absolutely depend on their trucks is 160s. And I'm going to get a lot of flack for that. Remember, everybody has their own opinion. If you want to have a discussion about it, leave it in the comments. But keep it civil. Everybody has different combinations. I don't run 160s on my truck. I run 175-30s and been very happy with them. There are times I wish I had 160s. Just because it can be a little smoky at times, especially if I fall under the turbo while I'm towing. I have to be mindful and make sure I'm keeping those RPMs up a little bit. When it comes to 160s, you have the option of having an AC code injector, which is a factory international injector size. You go and get it almost anywhere. So if you get a set of 160s and you're out on the road and the injector fails, you have that option to go to International or even Ford sometimes, or all these other places, and they're probably going to have a 160 in stock. You're not going to run into that with a 175-30, 180-30, 205-30, 205-80, whatever the combination you pick might be. Realistically, you're not going to be towing over about 300, 325 horsepower on your 7.3 power stroke, regardless. And that's assuming you have an intercooler, good H-pops, all that good stuff, a good turbo, whether it's a Casey Stage 1 or a balance assembly, something that's going to help keep those EGTs down. Otherwise, it's going to be miserable, because you're going to be sitting there watching your EGT gauge every time you hit a big hill. It may be different if you're in Nebraska and you're just pulling on flat ground all the time. But if you're in the mountains towing, you're going to be limited to about that 300-ish horsepower, give or take, depending on your combination. There's always exceptions. If you've got compound turbos and dual H-pops and some ridiculous fueling system and you've done tons of custom work to the truck, then yes, you might be able to tow higher than that. But for these guys that are saying they're towing, crazy weights up and down mountains with like an S467, you must be running like 2,800 RPMs the entire time, or at least above 2,500, because there's no way. Bigger turbo, once you get way up in the RPMs, if you can keep it spooled, that's great. But trying to keep it in that power band can be very challenging sometimes. Now, Z06 trucks with like, 488 gears, not so much. But if you've got a 250 or 350, it can be difficult to keep these trucks in the power band, because realistically, they like to make power between that like 1,800 and 28-ish hundred RPM mark. Even early on, some of these 7.3s really like to rev out a little bit. I mean, it's not uncommon for 488 trucks to be running down the road constantly at like 26, 27, 2,800 RPM. And they like it. They pull well at that RPM. They don't necessarily fall off like a big diesel would. So with that being said, I know this is going to be very controversial, but yeah, 160 zeros are the way to go for probably 80 to 90% of you guys, especially if you're working the trucks hard, because you're never going to be able to use more than what that 160 zero can provide. It's that simple. The wonderful thing about 160 zeros, they're a stage 1 injector. They're affordable. They're readily available in case one fails. And what I would do personally is, if I was going through a company like UDP, which I recommend, you get 160 zeros and get new solenoids on them for the $400 extra that they charge for the new solenoids. But when they do all the testing on that injector, they use those solenoids, the new solenoids on it, to set everything in spec. I would buy that over going with something like a stage 1.5, like a 180/30 or something like that. And once again, a 160 zero will still support, upwards of 350 wheel horsepower-ish. Some people say it's more like 325, but it's going to give you all the power, and we're talking wheel power. So at 300, 325 wheel horsepower, you're making 375, 400 at the crank. That's as much as basically a 6.4. Now, it's not going to spool as fast as a 6.4, but power output wise, you're going to be in similar territory. Very easily keep it up with 6.0 power strokes at that point, even a mildly tuned 6.0 power stroke. And it's going to do everything you want it to do. Is it going to be a race truck? Absolutely not. And if you want more fueling and you want more of a toy hauler or something that you play around with and tow with, then yeah, maybe a 180/30 is a better fit for you. But for you guys that absolutely depend on the truck and you want the most reliable injector you can get, 160 zero. Beautiful thing is also, for you OBS guys, you can drop it in and run it with no tuning. That's great. For you Super Duty guys that have split shot injectors, you get two advantages. Well, one's an advantage, one's a disadvantage. Number one, you're going to have to run tuning, because it's not going to idle right with the going to a single shot injector. But it will run in case you ever did have a tuner failure, like your hydro went out. Yes, it will still run. You'll be able to limp the truck. Definitely keep an eye on AGTs and stuff like that. But it's still going to run clean, and you're going to be able to get home even though you're running a split shot tune with a single shot injector. It will run. I've tested it on my truck. Now, with that being said, the advantage of going to the single shot from the split shot is that it's going to be less oil hungry, which means if your HPOP is a little bit weak, maybe you're not holding IPR as well, those 160 zeros will help. Also, a lot of times, if you've got 250,000 miles on your truck, guess what? Those split shot injectors are probably getting a little bit tired anyway, and you're going to pick up power and be able to hold HPOP pressure a lot better with the single shots. That's just my personal opinion. Now, the single shot injectors on your Super Duties may be a little bit louder. They're going to sound a little different, because that's one of the reasons they went to the split shot injectors, to kind of quiet down the cackle a little bit. Honestly, guys, it's not terrible. It's not like ridiculously loud. Does it sound a little louder? Yeah, but I would say more the noise is different. It changes the way the truck sounds. And it is a little harsher, but it's not, it's not going 5-inch straight pipe on a 6.4 loud kind of thing. It's not going to be ridiculous. It's still going to be a loud 7.3 either way. There's no getting around that. But anyway, guys, this is just my opinion. Once again, I did a ton of research before picking injectors. I kind of wish I just went with the 160 zeros and did what I told you, get the solenoids and have them set up from UDP or 4Force or any other reputable injector company. There's a lot of them out there. You can get them through Riff Raff Diesel, CNC Fab, KC Turbo, list goes on and on. You can get these injectors from anywhere. But the one big advantage of the 160s is because it is a factory injector, you could actually get it readily available, probably same day or next day, anywhere in the United States, at least in the continental United States. So if you absolutely depend on your truck and you absolutely are using it for work, it's something you earn money with, just go 160s, be done with it. I don't care if it's a Super Duty or OBS. That's the best combination for your work trucks. And it's going to be, honestly, the most injector you can even use if you're using your truck heavy and towing hard with it or pulling hard or working it hard. It's just the fact of the matter, guys. I know some people are not going to like that. They're going to argue with me on that. That's fine. That's your opinion. But I really feel like 160s are about the limit that you can really get out there and tow, 15,000 pounds of the mountains with, or 12,000 pounds of the mountains. But that's just my opinion. Anyway, guys, I hope you found this video helpful. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. I hope it helps you all out. I know there's a lot of injector confusion out there. I spend a lot of time looking at injectors. I do kind of wish I just went with the 160s and not the 175/30s, because I don't really use the power, honestly. Like when I'm towing heavy, I'm able to use the injectors really well, but other than when I'm unloaded, I really don't even run anything above I never run above a street tune. I mean, realistically, I keep my truck tuned with about an 80 horsepower street tune, and as high as I go. But a lot of times I'm rolling around in my economy tune and getting great fuel mileage on those single shot injectors. 18, 19 miles per gallon on the highway isn't bad for a 26-year-old truck with 261,000 miles on it. And